Thank you all for joining us this evening. I know that it's presidential debate night, and some of you will probably have that going on in the background. So for that sake, if you'll stay muted, use the chat feature. If you have any questions, we'll answer those at the end. And then also in I think the lower left corner, you're going to find a paper clip. I attached a number of documents that you should have access to that relate to this program, and I believe you can open that and download those into your own system. We'll make this presentation available on a recorded version later, as well as the documents, and we'll let everybody know where that is at. So I want to get started tonight and talk to you a little bit about basic term planning, both the calendar and the budget as it relates to the Past Master Counselor's Meritorious Service Program. So you can sort of see the drop on the jewel at the top. The real issue for me, I guess, is we're trying to have all Arizona chapters build their term plans around the use of this program. So I thought it would be good to spend 30 minutes with you just going through the process, I guess, how I would have done it if I was an advisor or a chapter advisor. I also think it's valuable information, not just for the leadership of the chapter, but any advisor on the advisory council to have this information, because as you'll see at the end, there's a place maybe that the chairman's going to ask you to step in and help with some of the chapter planning. So that being said, I really want to get into an overview of the requirements. I'm sure, hopefully, you've read the Past Master Counselor's Meritorious Service Award requirements. If not, again, they're attached at the bottom, or you can find them in the resources drive under honors and awards. But for short this evening, we'll sort of go in what is required of a master counselor or a counselor coming up through the line as they prepare their term plan. So here is a list of the things that they need to accomplish. Before their installation, they need to be able to give the ritual related to the master counselor's part from memory. So that's going to include the opening and closing of the chapter, the short form induction, and the 9 o'clock interpolation, that master counselor's part. And the chapter dad on the form is asked to sign off that he knows that. Now, we've not really made it very clear that we want that before the installation takes place, but I'm sure you can all understand, you know, if you've been in lodge before, we expect our officers to be proficient. And so for that reason, we want them to have this known beforehand. Now, does that preclude somebody that we've approved and is in the process right now? No. But as of last night, I did go onto the form and I made a very specific change so that when the chapter dad signs off, he knows that he's signing off, that they know it before their installation. Okay, so during the term of office, we expect them to confer degrees. In the olden days, that used to be full form Ministerial DeMolay degree. In today's world, most often more of our chapters are going to be able to do the short form, and that's okay. It has to occur during the term of office. Activities. The master counselor needs to come up with a social activity. What used to be known as civic, I've sort of renamed community service. We'll talk a little bit about that because there's some requirements there. They need a Masonic service event, athletic, fundraising, membership. So they need to pick these items, and they need to be chapter level events. So even though the state holds its day of service event, that cannot qualify as the community service event. So you can't say, hey, we're going here, so we're going to count that. Doesn't mean that they can't have an offshoot on another day that may mimic what the state's doing, but you just can't use the state activity the day that you attend. Youth protection. Every 6 months, the chapter needs to have a youth protection segment. That can be found now on eScribe under resources, videos. I'll show that again, that'll pop up, but you can pick a video segment, and along with that video segment is all the paperwork that a chapter dad or chairman would need to conduct the follow-up to the video program. When you're finished with that, there's a Google Drive form. I'm not sure if we click that on the documents or not, but it is in the drive under youth protection, under the Google Drive under youth protection. We need you to complete that with the segment that was done, and the date that it was done, and the attendance of the people that showed up. Obligatory days, so any obligatory days falling within the office, term of office, those have to be documented on the term plan, and we're asking that only one of those occur during a state meeting. Why do we do that? Because we really want you out and about in the public as much as we can get, so that we get good PR. New members, again, somewhat of a change. You'll see that on the form as we go forward, but no less than 5 members now during the course of the term is required. Now, there's going to be a give back to that if necessary, very slightly, but we're really asking you to bring 5 members, and I think most chapters have a goal of 5 to 6 members per term, depending how big you are. So community service, this was an adjustment we did last year. We're asking the chapter to do 25 hours of community service calculated per capita by members. So 5 members go out, 5 members spend 5 hours, you've completed your community service requirement. Less members are going to have to work harder. Bigger chapters, take more people to something, you're going to have not to do as much. But that's the requirement for that. And then lastly, this year we instituted a centennial MSA. So the master counselor that is able to do this extra work, which means inducting a 6th new member and holding a centennial commemorative event, since this is our 100th year, doing something there at the local chapter level. It's really an open book as to what you decide to do, but those are the 2 requirements. If everything else is completed in that, he gets the Centennial MSA, which includes the red jacket, now a black tie that says Centennial MSA on it, and the chapter then also gets a banner ribbon, if you will, that you can attach to your chapter banner, and that'll be normal going forward, I think, even into the regular program when the Centennial runs out. The Centennial goes through July of 2021, or to the point that we have convention. So any term beginning before the next convention will qualify, even though that term may run over into the next calendar term. So those are the basic requirements. There are 3 final things that you need to be aware of. In addition to stated and special meetings, a term must include at least 2 DeMolay activities per month. So here now we can all of a sudden use a state day of service and a regular chapter meeting, or a fundraiser, or an obligatory day, or the chapter can have 2 of its own events during the month. So remember at the top we said stated or special meetings. Most chapters have a stated meeting during the month. That would not count, but they do have a second meeting during the month called a regular meeting, or some form of activity. We would like to see that be some type of fun activity, or maybe a ritual practice with a fun activity. That would qualify as one of the 2 events. Then you just need to pick up one more. Master Counselor has to develop a program of way to communicate to members, to get members to come to activities. We don't do a very good job with most of our Master Counselors as I see them fill out the paperwork. It's usually, I'm going to make sure that they're contacted and they show up. Just like a little bit more information about what they're going to do, a calling tree, a newsletter, what specifically are we going to do to promote participation, not only of our existing members, but maybe those members that haven't shown up in the last 6 months. And then he needs to submit his letter of intent, his calendar, and his budget within 10 days of his installation. Now, you could fall over that, but it makes it very difficult on our point scale to be able to succeed and get it if he misses the 10-day deadline. I don't think that's unusual. Most of these things should be done well in advance. Okay, so the PMC MSA evaluation form, again, I hope we attach that. If not, we'll get it attached. This gives you an idea of the point score related to each of the items that we just talked about. I'm not going to go into it in depth, but you can see that there are different point values, obviously based upon what we think is important to the lifeblood of a chapter. So a lot of significance is going to be placed on membership since we flow through members so quickly. And then you can see the balance of those on this page. And then as I go to the bottom of the same page, we talk about one of the activity they have to do, social civic fundraising. They get points for that. Did they have 2 activities per month? They get points for that. Participation, did they have a plan? Did they execute the plan? And then you can go down and say, well, they didn't get it in time, fell over the 10 days. What's that going to cost me? At the end of the day, they need to have 90 points or better in order to get the award at the end of the term for the chapter to be recognized. So that is the goal. Not a lot of room for error. Now, we did do a give back at the end of last year. So now we have what's called a category saver. So you can employ this category saver if for some reason you only have 85 points. Where does that occur? That occurs when a member for a chapter, for instance, that only has 4 members at the end of the term, not the required 5. That would cause a situation where if everything else was perfect, they'd only have 85 points. So we provide a win back in any category of 5 points, but the win back really goes to civic or community service. So we've identified our significant charity, which is the Arizona DeMolay Foundation. If the chapter so wishes to donate $100, then we will allow the $5 buyback to get them to that minimum number. And then we can go ahead and give them the MSA award, give the chapter its banner, sash, and so forth. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about, now that we understand the parameters, I want to talk about how do you interact with counselors and very easily get them on a path to success. So first of all, we need to have a calendar in hand. I've shared with you as one of the documents a link to wincalendar.com. I highly recommend that you use a written calendar. I find it to be best, I think, for the young men. However, some chapters want to be more advanced and they just create a Google Calendar so it's electronic and everybody can work together back and forth as questions come up. So 7 steps that you need to have your counselor work through to get his program ready. The first is identify national holidays. So you can see those are highlighted. He'll need to take his calendar, his wincalendar.com, the written calendar, and he'll need to mark during the term of office that he's in which of these dates apply. Because we don't want to be holding events on these dates or sometimes during the weekend of these events. And then you need to look at important dates. I've marked some of those of what I think might be important dates that a chapter may not be interested in having an event near. I say Halloween, however. I think we're having some chapters that are doing things on or near Halloween. These are your choices. You can change this list as you need to, but I would give it to a young man and I would tell him these are the things you need to identify in your calendar. Okay, once we know that, we need to do installation dates. So we need a date for the start of his term, and everybody needs to agree. The chapter dad, the chairman, and the master counselor should agree on that. And we need a date at the end of the calendar as to when his term finishes so we can evaluate his term. So he'll need to maybe talk with the officer below him to figure out what that date's going to be and get that approved by the advisory council. The next thing that you should do, and you should expect this in an email in February that goes to the chairman and chapter dad, or you can find it right now in the resources file of our Google Drive under term plan, state term plan, are the state events. So honors night, fall induction, day of service, a development day, which is a leadership day, a leadership conference potentially. I mean, these change a little bit, but most of them are on the same weeks of the years. So he needs to fill those in. He'll have those to do that. Chapter meetings. They ought to be able quickly on step 4 to go in and list when are their chapter meetings, the 2nd and 4th Sunday, the 1st and 3rd Sunday, whatever those are during whatever day of the week that you meet, he ought to be able to mark those out. somewhere along the line, he needs to pick a youth protection night. I highly recommend that you would do that maybe before a meeting. I wouldn't do it as a standalone, but maybe during a social hour before a meeting. Tie it to an ice cream social. Tie it to something that'll get the boys to come out and sit through these. I mean, they're probably as familiar with them as we are, and it's probably not high on their priority list, but we need to make sure as much as we can that they're aware of potential risks, especially as we bring new advisors into the mix. Okay, number 6, obligatory days. They need to go through their calendar for their term, and they need to go ahead and input, here's the days, right? Patriots Day if it falls in February, Devotional Day if my term is in March, Parents Day. You can find these. They're attached to this presentation. They're also available on www.demolay.org, and this will be a clickable link, but it's under resources, and I don't remember from there, but you'll be able to find it. Not too hard on the public site, demolay.org. Here's the balance of those, and I've given some sort of ideas of things that you could do for My Government Day held in July. Honor a mayor or a governor with a presentation. Frank Land, honor fathers in the community that display qualities that the boys nominate that are most like maybe Frank S. Land. Day of Comfort. I love it when we got the kids out in the community working at a community kitchen, a food bank, something like that, where they're getting a feeling of the needy that's out there in our community. Okay. Item number 7, which I would do as the last item, they need to pick a social, community service, athletic, Masonic service, membership, and fundraising event. And they need to input that into their calendar somewhere. They can have more than that, but they're required to identify in their calendar what they deem to be their social event, their community service, and so forth. Usually I ask in the calendar that they highlight that. So if it's we're doing a gaming competition, right above that on the calendar, just bold the word athletics so that I know that we're doing what's required in the program. So you can see here, right? Here's all the things that they could come up with that they might be able to do for these events. They need to pick these, clearly. And that's that. Okay, so air checks, things that are unusual about the program. In addition, again, to the stated meetings, they need to make sure that they have at least 2 DeMolay activities per month, and they can include obligatory days and state events. Obligatory days, only one during a stated meeting, so do your very best, again, to get out in the community. If you're going to do My Government Day, go to the Capitol, go to your local fire station, do something that gets you in the community with the DeMolay name on the shirts and get us some good PR. Take some great pictures for us and send them to us. And finally, they need each of these categories at the bottom identified on their calendar, and they cannot use state events. So it's the same, they can't go to Day of Service and qualify that as their community service event. They're going to have to go to our Day of Service and then do Feed My Starving Children or something for theirs. Okay, so that's quick. I'm going to come back to that here in just a second, but that gives you the 7 steps that you should work with under counselors. Here's an outline of a budget. I've given that to you on the paper clip that you can pull up, the Excel spreadsheet. Really, what we're trying to accomplish here is having the young man list each of his income-related events, fundraisers, things. Obviously, I don't know that an installation is an income item, but it is maybe if you're selling something there. But list that in the month that it occurs. Go ahead and put the income that you're going to derive from that. That could include a fee that you're charging for a particular event for the young men to go. That is considered income. And then this sheet that you have in Excel format, it will go ahead and calculate automatically as long as you stay within the light boxes and not the dark boxes. On the other side, in the middle of that form, you're going to find fixed expenses. I'm sure there's probably more than this. But if your chapter pays rent, you'll need to divvy that out. I usually make master counselors pay for that over 12 months. So whatever your annual bill is, divide it up. They need to come up with that money somewhere in their income. Insurance went up hugely last year. We're paying $15 per individual. So take that into account. I think that's probably good. Go in, find out how many members are in your chapter through the eScribe function, multiply it out, divide it by 12. Honors and awards, these are the Legion of Honors, the Chevaliers, the Cross of Honors. You're going to have to put that in someplace. Figure out how many you think that you might give. Chevaliers are running, I believe, $50 right now, and Legion of Honor and Cross of Honors are running $125. So if you can estimate those and get them into your term plan, then we can work on that from an income standpoint. Again, the young man should list all of his activities during his term, and in each month that they occur, he should go ahead and say, what's the cost of, what's that going to cost us now? And at the end of the day, he's going to get his bottom line here of whether or not he's making money or not. We're going to get a red or we're going to get a black, and we're looking for some form of a black number here to show that we've got a positive cash flow at the end of the term. So not going to walk through that an example beyond that, but you have the form and you can begin to use that. I'm not stuck on that form completely. If you have a better mousetrap than we have, please send it to us and let us see whether or not it can replace this particular one. Okay, so we've talked about the 7 steps. We've talked about the budgeting program. I want to talk about mastering a consistent program, which really starts at the junior consular level, advances a step to the senior, and then, by the way, we're ready to execute when we get to the master consular level. So what's going to happen in a perfect world, right, is that we're going to start the term planning process the moment the junior consular is elected and takes office. And in my opinion, the best person to do that is the chapter chairman, or if we have another qualified individual like one of you out there tonight being trained on this program, then step up and you can be this person. You need to get the junior consular side and you need to engage them with a member survey. That's probably should be one of the first things that they put out at maybe one of the first or second meetings of the term. Their term as junior consular, find out what the interest of the members are in relation to all these events that we're talking about. I've included a very basic picture of a form. You can design what you want to do and get it out and get the answers to that. He needs to acquire a calendar, so send him to wincalendar.com. Tell him to download the months that relate to his term, so he has some written document that he can start writing on, and then go through the process. Young man, you need to identify the national holidays and important dates. Here's a form that I got off a presentation that you can use, go through, find out what dates they are during your term, and mark them. Chapter meeting dates. Let's get our stated meeting dates and our regular meeting dates listed. And let's start a wish list of these items that we have. What do we want to do during your year as master consular for social and community service and athletic and so on? He needs to have an understanding from you that he needs to pay for his events or his expenses. So when he's thinking about fundraising, my I guess philosophy is, I personally, as chapter dad, would never do a fundraiser unless it raised $500. I didn't find it worth the chapter's time. You may feel differently than that. That just means that he may need to create more fundraisers during his term. And I would suggest that unless they're at the early part of the term, then you're going to be trying to catch up at the end of the term to try and make positive cash flow. If you have a dinner at the beginning of the term and it doesn't make any money, or it makes less money than you expected, then you need to move all that much faster to make sure that he gets to positive cash flow. And have him dream big. I mean, when I was a chapter dad, I used to start with that and said, what's the biggest thing you want to do during your term? you know, and the kids came up with great things. They wanted to go to Disneyland, and they wanted to have an overnight event, an Oracle at a location there, boys club. Those are all okay. And we want them to think about those things. Then we need to figure out how we're going to pay for them. And so you need to sort of guide them through that process a little bit. And so that's, I think I've got one more. Have him identify his obligatory days in his term and start to generate some ideas of what he wants to do with each of those. That gives a young man who's junior consular a good start, right? And then you can pass him on when he becomes senior consular. Oh, last one. Sorry, I forgot G. Establish an installation date. So you need to obviously have what's going to be his installation date into the master consular term. Get that on a calendar early. Get your lodge to approve it so that we have access. Okay, so then he gets passed on to the senior consular, or he becomes senior consular. That's what should happen. That's what we want to see. We really don't want to see us electing 3 new officers every term. We want to start to see some stability. So at the point that he becomes senior consular, the chapter dad takes over. He finishes the process. We're going to add the state events into the calendar at the start of his senior consular term. We're going to add the installation date that we approved, and we're also going to secure the installation date for the master consular below, the guy below him that's going to become master consular right after him. Obligatory days. And then we're going to add those final elements in, and we're going to focus on fundraising to make sure that we can pay for everything he wants to do. We're going to make sure that he has at least one of these events. And we're going to add youth protection. And again, you can get to that through eScribe resources videos. And we're going to prepare a budget. And we want a positive cash flow that comes out of that. When all of this is done, he's ready to go to the advisory council and get a final approval. All of that should be easily accomplished by the time he's halfway through his term as senior consular, so that he can get approval and then he can start focusing on installation planning. I need a set of officers. That's a whole nother presentation for a whole nother day. But that's got to be the goal, starting early, getting them done by the time they're halfway through their senior consular term, and then off we go. We're going to execute as our master consular. Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen. And come back here. Okay, and so this is a good time if you have any questions, or there's any that's showing up in chat. Either way, Deb Johnston, any questions that we've had come through during the course?
No questions so far.
Okay, does anybody have a live question after all of the information that we've provided? Okay, that being said, I'm not going to keep you online any longer. We did record this. We will go ahead and get it out and up so that everybody that didn't attend tonight might take a time to look at it. I appreciate all of your time during debate evening. Hopefully I didn't hold you up that way. Hopefully this helps you in some way work a little bit better with your chapters on getting term planning done. We appreciate everything you do every day. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Quick question before, where do I find the attachments at again? I'm sorry, you said it was in the lower left corner somewhere, but I'm not seeing it.
There should be, I don't know if my cursor's showing up here in the lower corner of the screen. I have a paper clip. Does anybody else see a paper
Okay, mine
clip?
just says meeting details. Mine says meeting details. If I click on it, it has details and attachments, but it says attachments 0. So.
Okay, so this is the first time that I've had to deal with the attachment issue. So I will get those out in a follow-up email along with this presentation. So you'll get a link, and then I'll have the attachments for everybody that attended tonight.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Yeah, Dad Gordon, this is Dad Zaucha.
Yeah.
Just a heads up, all the attachments on the paperclip, they are requesting a permission to view them. I don't know if there's a way you can do that, or if you just have to give permission to everybody.
Well, I tried that just before the meeting, and it said give permission to everybody, and apparently it didn't work. So, live and learn. I'll have to figure out the answer to that one.
Copy
So
that.
I'll get them out. I'll get you guys the link to this session and then I'll have the email have attachments on it. Anything else before we end the evening? All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you again for your time, ladies. I appreciate it. I look forward to working with your chapters in the months ahead.